roundtable discussion considers the pain points associated with delivering life insurance solutions in Australia and where the industry is heading. With thanks to our sponsor, iExtend, neither your advisor nor other industry peers pull their punches when discussing the current pain points experienced by advisors and advice businesses. But they also propose solutions, some of them blue sky propositions, in offering their vision for the future.
If you could just help us to get the ball rolling, David, by giving us your take, however you want to roll, with regard to what the pain points might be at the moment for advisors, advice businesses, or for the sector in general, and then what some of the solutions might be as you look ahead.
Pain points, that's an interesting area because I think it depends on the perspective that you have. If you look at the insurers, the advisors and the consumer policyholders, there's pain points across the entire segment there. Obviously, at an insurer level, it's been a tough ride in the sense that the growth in the business, particularly if we focus on risk, has been dropping. The new business being written has been tough. Investment returns for them, I think, has been tough to generate as well, which doesn't help the way that they generate returns to support their business and keep premiums and the product value there for the industry. And I think also it's been the amount of innovation that's come from that industry over the years has kind of stalled, and we've had the same type of product design for 30 odd years, and that innovation hasn't been there with the legacy system. So I think the insurers themselves, I think, are facing those pain points.
Why is that? Why hasn't there been as much innovation? Is it because companies have been directing their resources to compliance or other issues? Why hasn't there?
I'm not 100% sure about that one. I know in the banking world that's certainly the case. With insurers, I feel that there's been some good growth in the risk space for a number of years, and I guess if you're having that, the need to innovate isn't always there. So we've seen a massive growth probably from 2000 on to at least sort of say 2015 or so, and then since then it's been falling off. I think now there is a need to make those changes, and I think they need to look ahead for the next 10 years and see how those changes that they need to make today will benefit them in the future. A number of advisors have been falling, and we know why that's been the case. Obviously, it's a growing, ageing group that has been the biggest proponents of life insurance, and they know life insurance needs to be sold, and they've known how to do that over the years. But I guess with government regulation, education, so forth, we've seen quite a number of sort of drop away, which has been unfortunate for the industry as well. So there's that balance between the number of advisors selling life insurance and the industry itself sort of falling in terms of the number of premiums written and so forth. So those dynamics haven't helped the industry in total, so that's certainly a pain point. And I mean, insurance is one of those things, life insurance particularly, it's, you need strong disposable income to be able to afford it. And so, I think today we're going to see the environment get more and more difficult for the consumer. Inflation's rising, cost of living is rising, and it pains me to say, but it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Okay, so thank you for that, David. For those who are watching or listening to this conversation, then as you look ahead, what are the solutions to some of the issues that you've just raised? What do you see when you look in your crystal ball for the future?
Well, certainly, look, as we've discussed, I think investment returns is one area they need to focus on, and that's something that any large corporation that's managing assets needs to do. So if we put that aside, I think it comes back down to how do you manage your costs and how do you make what you do more efficient. And so technology's taking leaps and bounds, and I think there's a lot of money that needs to continue to be spent by the insurers, and I know they're spending a lot of time and money on it, but it seems like the focus has been on the front end as opposed to the back end. And I think if you can create an environment where the back end administration is more efficient, certainly that will reduce costs. And I guess how do you do that? I mean, the technology out there is quite amazing now, blockchain. If you think about what an insurance asset is, it's really a title to a claim. And the best way to measure, to administer titles these days is through blockchain.
Okay, David, so there's some pretty clear pain points as it relates to life companies. Is there anything else you want to add before we move on?
Well, I will say that there's the innovation is now being done externally to the insurers as well. There's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that are being funded to add value to the industry. I mean, we know in Australia we've got InsurTech Australia that's driving and helping shape some of that. Interestingly, a company like LifeBit, which is working with the insurers themselves to create sort of efficiencies. But I would say that the life insurance market is very fragmented. So I think for the development of efficiency and moving forward with the tech, I think a coordination amongst themselves would certainly help, because the products and the innovation is one aspect, but the streamlining of administration could be centralised as well in some way.
Okay, that's a strong message.
Yeah, I think maybe working with governments and external providers might help them as well, because it's a massive cost to take forward.
Sure. Thank you, David. Mark, you had a point you wanted to make about life company innovation.
Yeah, I think we've had just so much uncertainty for so long now that it's very hard to be innovative if you don't know what the rules are you're going to be playing by. And we've had from the old commission levels, and they were up on the table right until the last few years, right down to zero. So it's very hard, I think, for an insurance company to do that. And I'm still, from the advisor's point of view, see the opportunities, but I get that if you don't know what the rules are you're playing by, it's very hard. And I just only really think just now the insurance companies are saying, okay, these are the rules we're playing by, this is a new normal, we can now try and be innovative. But I think we can give them a bit of a pass for, say, the last 5 to 10 years even, with actually not knowing the rules they're going to be playing by, or even what insurance products they could actually promote.
Okay, so advisors and dealer group support teams can perhaps be looking with greater confidence towards more innovation stemming from the life companies over time.
Yes, if they act on it, yes.
If they act on it. Mm. Okay, so thank you for that. Perhaps we turn to you, Danny, and have a conversation. David's talked about some pain points as they relate at life company level, but at the coalface with advisors and advice businesses. Do you have your take based on perhaps the work you've been doing with XY advisors on what the key issues, the key pain points are with advisors at the moment, and perhaps what the solutions might be moving on from that?
Yeah, so I think this is such a simple formula. Like it's we all know, and I'm going to say things everyone all knows and that haven't been said, as new news. But insurance is a huge grudge purchase, as and an advisor sort of have amazing skills to get that grudge purchase over the line. There's a lot of heavy lifting to convince someone that it's a worthwhile thing to do. So there's all that mental work and influence that an advisor spends hours working with the client, and there's a whole process and a sales process, and the advisors around the table can talk to that with more credibility than I can. But once an advisor's gone through that and they've achieved that, I think what is the huge pain point for them is the heavy lifting that now comes into it that is created by the product providers. So I guess there's things like the efficiency and the credibility are the two points that are probably we hear most about.
Is it the fault of the product provider or the rules that they have to operate under in order to provide their product?
Look, that's probably better spoken to perhaps by Ruth or Dave in terms of the rule book that they need to work by. But I guess the problem from the advisor's lens is, there's all of this paperwork, there's no continuity between all of the providers. So even the cooperation of different providers to just reduce work times, cut down the time my team spends on the phone, just all the heavy lifting that I have to do after I've actually done all of this psychological work with the client to actually get them over the line. And very few purchases require such arduous processes once someone's been convinced. And I think financial services in large has a long way to go. If you look at, so this probably speaks to your question around innovation, what's next, is most industries in the world look at the customer experience. What are we actually trying to create? What does the customer want? And I guess there's two customers for any product provider in the marketplace. There's an advice client and then there's the advisor. So if you look at the customer experience that both of those particular stakeholders require, where we are today is very, very far removed from what would be a good customer experience. And I think the product the product keeps trying to be tweaked, but there's a fundamental design issue which is not even centred around what either one of those stakeholders requires. And I remember being at a conference, this is a bit left field, but I remember being at a conference and a lady said, whoever thinks Uber is innovative has never sat in a taxi. And that could be so well applied to insurance. Like whoever, if we talk about innovation, it should probably just come from, well, what is an experience a client would expect in today's market, and what is the experience that a second stakeholder who brings in that client with a lot of heavy lifting, their whole experience should perhaps be prioritised, because the whole thing wouldn't be sold often if it wasn't for the advisor.
Okay. Right. Well, there's a few things coming out of that. And we're going to be talking product in a minute with Elaine in particular, but these are the pain points, the quagmire of being able to deliver the ultimate service to the client. When you look to the future, do you see any answers?
I don't think the answers, you do see the answers. The answers are basically looking back to a service proposition that doesn't take hours and paperwork, and collaboration would be the first step. So none of this is very inventive. It's not left field. It's simply just looking at the things that take time and effort and energy and additional hours, and then push out the cost of the whole purchase for the customer. So that, I guess, if you're looking at the solutions, it would be going back and really understanding what is the customer experience that an advisor needs to make this whole process, which is a grudge purchase, for their world. How do you make it easier? Because we're seeing certainly a lot of advisors going, you know what, it's all too hard now. And there's been changes obviously in, automatically people getting insurance in default super plans and all that sort of stuff. So the role of an advisor to make sure people are insured, if that person isn't incentivised to have this thing as an important part of their business proposition, then ultimately it will be the end client and the community that really suffers when there's health issues. And they're pretty frequent, and it will be a big issue not only for the community but also the government. So I think everyone should be working just to make the process of purchasing something that is difficult and people don't really lean into purchasing it. They should make that situation as simple as possible for an advisor to administer, to keep it appropriate for the customer's needs. And all you'd have to do is ask some advisors how that should look, and I'm sure you get the design sheet.
That's exactly what we're about to do, Danny. We're about to ask the advisors sitting around the table in what will be the second part in this 4-part roundtable video series, their view about what the pain points are from their perspective that are impacting their advice propositions and their advice business, and what should be done about it.